Howdy, all. Welcome on into Goose Talks Film. And we are back for the weekly movie reviews in 2025. It's been a long time coming. It's been about 6, 7 months. I've been doing some random episodes here and there, but we are back into the movie reviews. Look, I can't promise it's going to be every single week, but we're going to get back into the routine of doing new release movies and the occasional old classic, whatever you want to call it, non-new release movie review. But we are starting the year really strong. We are doing a review of Nosferatu. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that Nosferatu was nominated in more than 70% of the categories at the Golden Goose Film Awards, the very first annual Golden Goose Film Awards. Before you want any spoilers, if you want to go back and listen to the episode about that, listen to it, watch it on YouTube. It's on both. It's on all the podcatchers. It's on YouTube. If you just want to watch the one that says Golden Goose Awards winners, that's got the nominations in it, obviously, as well. So if you don't want to listen to a whole video about the nominees and then listen to an episode about the winners, then just listen to the winners one. But yeah, as I was saying, Nosferatu did really well. It ended up winning Best Director for Robert Eggers, Best Cinematography. He was also among other awards that it won as well. He did win a few, but it was nominated for a lot. It didn't snag that Best Overall Film. It got very close. It was like a 0.5, I think, or something like that. But anyway, Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. This is my second time watching it. I briefly saw it around Christmas, but with the awards and obviously having a young family over Christmas, it was kind of impossible to do a proper movie review of it. So I watched it so I could be in contention for the Golden Goose Film Awards. And then I've rewatched it since it's dropped on digital, so I can kind of watch it whenever I want, and then I can review it. So here we are. So before we get into spoiler territory, I'll talk about the film a little bit, and then I'll give a warning. If you want to listen to a few little opinions that are spoiler free before you watch the movie, do so. Pause it before you get into the spoiler territory. Watch the movie, come back, listen to my thoughts, and you can agree, disagree. Let me know in the comments or review or a message over on social media. But yeah, so Nosferatu is a remake of the 1922 film, and it's also, which in turn was an unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but they couldn't get the rights, but they made the movie anyway. And the movie was almost pretty well lost if it wasn't for, I think, one or two copies of the film that weren't destroyed, even though they were ordered to because of the copyright issues. It was then sold later down the line, was released on DVD, and now it's one of the most important films ever. I don't want to say one of the best films, but it's obviously a silent film. It inspired a remake or another adaptation by Werner Herzog in 1979. Although that one is a bit weird because it is called Nosferatu the Vampire, but they use the official names from Dracula, so it's like Jonathan Harker, Count Dracula, all that type of stuff. Whereas Robert Eggers' movie Nosferatu is, I don't want to say a direct adaptation, but obviously, it's in turn an adaptation of Dracula. But they keep the names the same. I don't want to say it keeps all the same beats, but a lot of the important things. And it has been a while since I've watched the original Nosferatu. I watched it during COVID, so it's been about 4, maybe nearly 5 years. I was wanting to watch it before or after rewatching it, but I just haven't had the time, and I wanted to get this movie review out. So unfortunately, I didn't get to. So I'm just going off some old knowledge. So if I'm wrong about something, please let me know. Correct me in the comments. I don't mind. I've got a terrible memory, so yeah. Anyway, so Nosferatu. Here we go. Here is the spoiler-free plot synopsis. A gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. Directed by Robert Eggers, written by Robert Eggers, Henrik Galeen, Bram Stoker. So, Bram Stoker, obviously the original creator of the story of Dracula, the original novel, and Henrik Galeen is the creator of the 1922 silent film Nosferatu. And obviously you have Robert Eggers, who's adapting the screenplay, and he directed it. Yeah, so I'll just give a brief little review here before I get into spoiler free. So if you have a bit over 2 hours to spare, you love your horror, maybe you're not into a lot of the body horror or the violent horror, the slasher type stuff that's gotten quite big again. And you want to watch something that's maybe not big on violence, very atmospheric, bit of a slow burn. This is good for you. It does have a bit of blood and a bit of gore, obviously, because it is a vampire story. But it's not the main focus. It's not your gore porn. It's not, teens getting slashed up pieces by pieces, although I do love a good slasher. This is very, yeah, like I said, a very atmospheric gothic horror. And if you want to maybe branch into horror a bit more, but you don't want to deal with the violence, you don't want to deal with the sex and the sometimes the silliness and the comedy, you want a full dramatic gothic horror that is beautifully shot, beautifully acted, beautifully written. It will make you question things, that I think is great. Robert Eggers, if you haven't watched his movies before, I do recommend them. So you have The Witch, which is I would call a full-blown horror. And then you have The Lighthouse, which I would call, yeah, a horror, drama, thriller, history. Yeah, that's probably that. And then the next one, The Northman, are probably your two that are maybe a step below for the horror. Whereas Nosferatu and The Witch, I would put up, I would classify them as horror above anything else. The Northman, I would put as, Northman's a revenge tale. Very, very good, very pretty. If you love your Viking stuff and all that, Robert Eggers did a really good job of that, in my opinion. But that's a video for a different day talking about Robert Eggers' career. But as I was saying, if you aren't familiar with Robert Eggers, he is a director that kind of bases a lot of his movies around, one question or one little topic. And like I said, The Northman, right? It was about a revenge story. And the question was, are you willing to sacrifice everything else in your life after one thing that you loved got taken away from you? Are you willing to throw everything else that you love that's come afterwards, throw it away to get revenge to that person that scorned you in the first place? It's a very, very interesting topic to discuss. And, Viking era is just really cool to tackle that. Northman, Alexander Skarsgård, really good in that. Willem Dafoe, Ethan Hawke. Recommend that. And then you had The Lighthouse. That kind of is asking the question of, what would you do in a situation? Like, what will humans do? They're two very different ways that people can go crazy or think they're going crazy or the other person going crazy. That's a very, very good question to ask. Nosferatu is asking that question of, what will you do for love? Like, how far will you go for love? What will you do? Won't you do? And there's different aspects of that from different point of views. It's very, very cool. I recommend this to... I'm not going to recommend it to everyone, but I recommend it to quite a lot of people. This and The Northman would be the two Eggers movies that I would definitely recommend the most. I think if you're a horror fan, Witch, 100% watch The Witch. If you don't like horror, that's probably not going to be your cup of tea. The Lighthouse is probably the most slow burn of the four. And that's definitely more niche. If you're very artsy and you want to get into filmmaking and you just love things that look different, it respects things, and Lighthouse, yeah, I mean, like all Eggers films, and Nosferatu's in that category as well. It kind of captures a little bit of the 1922 Nosferatu, but Eggers kind of puts his own twist on it without kind of a shot-for-shot remake, because people don't want that. I don't understand shot-for-shot remakes. If you're going to remake something, you better believe in yourself that you're going to at least be on the level of the original movie, or your aspiration to make it better. If you want to do a shot-for-shot remake, or you're going to change heaps of shit about the movie without making it better and taking away the substance of the film, don't bother. But, as soon as it was announced a few years ago, once The Northman was released, that this was going to be his next project, that's an Eggers thing, because he releases movies every 3, 4, sometimes 5 years. He's obviously working on his next film whilst the current one's in production and it's getting released. Then he knows what his next project's going to be, because he's very articulate about things. And his next one is going to be a werewolf movie, which will be released in between 2 to 4 years. And another fact about Eggers is that he has stated in an interview, none of his films will ever feature a mobile phone or a car. So that kind of tells you he's never going to do a modern retelling of anything. He's never going to do a modern original movie. He's very passionate about being able to tell these delicate, woven stories in different time periods. So I think it's really cool. But off waffling, it's pretty much all I'll talk about without getting into spoilers. But look, Nosferatu, a lot of horror fans love it. I mean, among horror podcasters and fans in general, rarely did I see a top 5, top 10 list without Nosferatu being in the top 5. Top 3 usually. It was in my top 5 of the year. I think it was probably top 3. It's kind of hard to separate. I had Heretic, Late Night with the Devil, and Nosferatu as like a top 3. And then I had other ones like The Substance and all that would have been battling for the 4th and 5th position. Yeah, so that tells you one thing. I mean, it's nominated for 4 Oscars, and unfortunately, they're all technical categories, like your cinematography, costuming, and all that, which is disappointing, but well-deserved. I hope it wins one. I think it should win Best Cinematography. It was the best cinematography I saw last year. Alien Romulus was very, very close for like beautiful science fiction horror movie. Nosferatu was just beautifully shot. Like, I think people that aren't horror fans could really appreciate the cinematography. And, it's kind of like another actor, Robert Eggers' cinematography. Well, I mean, it's not his. Can't remember the gentleman's name who's a cinematographer, but it's a thing with all of his movies where the cinematography is such an integral part that it becomes part of the cast, essentially. So, yeah, it's nominated for 4 Oscars. Those Oscars are, like I said, best cinematography, best achievement in makeup or hairstyling, best production design, or best costume design. And best costume design. So that's 4. Didn't get directing. It didn't get best picture. The acting, I don't think that was ever going to happen. There was no traction on any of the individual performances, unfortunately. As the thing happens with horror, it's kind of, although we had one of the all-time best horror movie years of the past 10, 15 years easily, with some amazing performances, we only really got the one. It was Demi Moore from The Substance. Kind of like, the camera's like, all right, you get your one, and that's it. Whereas, I mean, Hugh Grant deserved a nomination for Heretic. David Dastmalchian should have been in the conversation. It was probably a reach that he was going to be nominated. But then you had Margaret Qualley, who was snubbed for Best Supporting Actress. You have actors like Julia Garner in Apartment 7A. You have Naomi, I forgot her last name, Naomi from Smile 2. All these performances that, in my opinion, it's all subjective and objective, trumps a lot of the nominees from the Best Acting and Best Supporting categories. But again, that's a conversation for a different time. Maybe we'll talk about that when I do my Academy Awards preview and predictions. But anyway, we'll leave it there for this spoiler-free territory. If you haven't watched the movie and you want to, pause it here, watch the movie, jump back in, and like I said, see if you agree or disagree with my comments and my review. I'm very, very intrigued to jump into this and have a conversation with people afterwards. So please, always feel free. If you don't want it to be public, if you're scared you're going to be patronized or abused or whatever, don't ever feel like that. My community is very, very good. It's very small. I've only been around for not even a year, but it's very small. Everyone's very friendly. Everyone's respectful. We have very good conversations. But chuck me a message, like direct message on Instagram or Facebook. Always feel free. Or just leave a review, like, anonymously. I love to have discussions with people. So if you want to start a discussion but you're too scared to, please feel free to. But like I said, it's a great community. Don't ever feel like that. But this is your spoiler warning. We're going to jump into the spoilers. So this is the warning. As we do here on Goose Talks Film, I like to do the big plot synopsis that includes spoilers that I read from Wikipedia. It's, at least the easiest source to read from. So it sometimes takes quite a while. Sometimes it's not too bad. This is probably medium size. So please bear with me while I get through the plot synopsis. In the early 1830s, young Ellen pleads for a supernatural being to ease her loneliness. Her cries awaken a mysterious creature who makes her pledge herself to him eternally. In 1838, Ellen has married Thomas Hutter, and the couple live in Wisberg, Germany. Thomas accepts a lucrative commission from his employer, Hernock, to sell the decrepit home Grunwald Manor to the reclusive Count Orlok. Ellen, haunted by dreams of marrying death and disturbed by the pleasurable dreams she has, begs Thomas to stay. He leaves her in the care of his wealthy friend Friedrich Harding and his wife Anna, along with their 2 young daughters. Arriving in Transylvania, Thomas is shunned by the local peasantry for associating with Orlok. That night, he witnesses Romani exhuming and impaling an alleged vampire's corpse with a stake, causing it to vomit blood. The following morning, Thomas finds the entire village and his own horse gone. Thomas continues on foot until an unmanned carriage arrives and carries him to Orlok's castle. Upon their meeting, the strange and menacing Orlok forces Thomas to complete the property sale. When Thomas accidentally cuts himself during dinner, he blacks out and awakens to find bite marks on his chest. Orlok steals Thomas's locket containing a lock of Ellen's hair. He coerces Thomas into signing a document which Orlok implies is a contract for selling Grunwald Manor, though it is written in a cult script that Thomas cannot read. Becoming increasingly sick, Thomas later finds Orlok asleep in a coffin. He attempts to stake him, but Orlok awakens and feeds on him again. Thomas escapes Orlok's wolves and is cared for by Orthodox nuns at a nearby church. Meanwhile, Orlok sets sail for Wisberg on a ship with plague carrying rats, killing the crew during the voyage. Ellen suffers from sleepwalking and seizures that Dr. Wilhelm Sievers attempts to treat. Sievers consults with his former mentor Alban Eberhard von Franz, a Swiss scientist ostracized for his occult beliefs. Von Franz believes Ellen is under the spell of a demonic plague-bearing vampire called the Nosferatu. Nock is institutionalized after killing and eating sheep raw. Sievers and von Franz search Nock's office believing he serves the Nosferatu, who is revealed as Count Orlok. Thomas returns to Wisberg as Orlok's plague ravages the populace. Nock escapes and escorts Orlok to Grunwald Manor. Orlok appears to Ellen and confesses that, while he's incapable of love, her eternal pledge has intertwined their destinies and made his desire to possess her insatiable. The document he tricked Thomas into signing is revealed to void the Hutter's marriage. Orlok, knowing that his bond with Ellen cannot be sustained by force, says she must willingly submit to him within 3 nights, else he will kill Thomas and allow the plague to consume Wisberg. Ellen later has sex with Thomas after confessing her past with Orlok and experiencing a seizure, which Orlok sees telepathically. It prompts him to retaliate by killing Anna and her children. Driven mad with grief, Friedrich dies from the plague while lying with Anna's corpse. Von Franz's occult research suggests that the Nosferatu can be destroyed by a fair maiden's willing sacrifice. Knowing she is the only person who can stop the plague, Ellen conspires with von Franz to keep Thomas distracted so she can sacrifice herself. Thomas, von Franz, and Sievers go to Grunwald Manor where they accidentally kill Herr Nock after finding him sleeping in Orlok's coffin. Realizing von Franz's deception, Thomas rushes back to save Ellen as von Franz destroys the coffin. Ellen summons Orlok to her bedroom and repledges herself to him, distracting him by allowing him to feed on her blood until sunrise, when the sunlight kills him. Thomas returns and holds Ellen's hand as she dies. Von Franz confirms that her sacrifice has freed them from the Nosferatu plague. There we go. That's a long read. Hopefully you keep up okay, that I wasn't stumbling too much. But yeah, so that is Nosferatu by Robert Eggers. Look, I just want to start with talking about Bill Skarsgård's performance as Count Orlok / Nosferatu. I think his look, his makeup and all that, I think it was different. I think a lot of people maybe will be or were disappointed that it wasn't the typical Nosferatu look with a Count Orlok look from Nosferatu, where he's bald, he's got the ears, he's got the very protruding fangs, he's very, obviously gaunt, pale, skinny, the way he stands. Whereas, the build of Orlok in this one's obviously very similar, but he's got kind of half a head of hair, maybe if that, like a wisp of hair that's curled over. He's got the moustache. He wears a lot of baggy clothing. I think they were obviously going for the Vlad the Impaler look, because that's obviously what Dracula's based off, is the real life Vlad the Impaler. So that's where the look would come from. I like that it was different. It still, to me, fit the story of Nosferatu. I think was if you're making those decisions, they're kind of ones to do. Is kind of the look of a character, but not too much. And I think they nailed it. And reading about Bill Skarsgård's performance, when I heard him talk, he was obviously speaking Romanian, very deep voice, and he was coughing a lot. And I was wondering if there was any, not so much interference, but any post work done to that. But it was all him. He was very, very, not so much method, but he worked 6 weeks just on the voice, and he talked in that voice all the time, that he didn't want to lose it, so he kept it, and he kept doing it, so it kind of made his voice even raspier, and like kind of as if he was losing it. And he's kind of got that Mongolian singing voice, which I think is throat singing, they call it. So that was really cool. I thought that was very creepy. It really set the eeriness of the movie as soon as Hutter gets there. I thought that was really, really cool. The setting of the castle, probably I'm revealing some trivia here already, but it is part of the discussion that I want to bring up. That the exterior, it wasn't Vlad the Impaler's castle in Romania, but it was another castle that, to my knowledge, I think he was held captive once he was caught and his regime was overthrown. He was kept as a prisoner in that castle. That was the exterior shot with the kind of, it looks like a skinny bridge off the mountain cliff. That is real. Obviously, they did some post work to make it look like it was old and decrepit in the 1800s. And the interior was one in the Czech Republic, if I'm not mistaken. So exterior, interior, you wouldn't know that they were different castles. I think they were shot really well, was done really well. Sometimes you can tell an exterior shot to interior shot doesn't really fit and doesn't quite work. But that worked really well. I think the set decoration and the location was really, really cool. Awesome work on that. I wish we kind of got a bit more on the castle, but I know that's not the main part of the story and that's not where the climax or anything happens, but I kind of wished for an Orlok or a Dracula movie where it's completely set in the castle. I think that's a really, really cool idea. It's probably been done before, but obviously they're telling the story of Orlok / Dracula, where he's obviously travels to try and be with this woman and brings a plague with him. But I think Skarsgård killed it. I think I was disappointed, initially, like a lot of other people, when it was announced that Willem Dafoe, he was one of the first people to sign on as a cast member. We all automatically thought, Eggers kind of wants to bring him back as Orlok, but instead of playing kind of like a meta version of it from Shadow of the Vampire, which he was nominated for an Oscar for, should have won, back in 2001. The movie was released in 2000, if I'm not mistaken. We all just assumed that he was going to be Orlok again. I kind of, in hindsight, glad they didn't, because then it separates from the Shadow of the Vampire and obviously kind of, like I said, puts a different twist on the original as well, with the appearance of Orlok. So, look, I think Willem Dafoe killed it. I think the cast in this, you have Willem Dafoe and Ralph Ineson, who have now been in 3 Eggers movies each, if I'm not mistaken. So that's really, really cool. Great to see directors still collabing with actors a lot. It was kind of like a dying thing there in the 2000s. It was a very 80s, 90s thing. They had like Tim Burton and Spielberg and all that. They would like to use, Ridley Scott, they'd like to use the same actors quite a bit and have those deep connections with certain actors. So Eggers obviously has his connection because he knows what he gets from him. They know what they're going to get from him. Eggers is very, like I said earlier, he's very anal about things where he'll have kind of like what he calls character Bibles. He gives the Bible to each actor playing the character and kind of gives them a background on the character without kind of telling them, do it this way and you have no freedom. It's kind of like, this is the background of the character. This is everything, their childhood, what they're going through, what they've been through. This is their motivation within the film. So it gives them a real basis to then work from and build from. So it's kind of, he's giving them the foundation and they're the construction crew, right? So I like that. As an actor, I'd be the type of actor that I would love that. That'd be awesome. That would help me out a lot. A lot of actors might not like that, but a lot of the actors like Nicholas Hoult and Lily Depp have all come out and said they really like that about him. That's what they like about him. And he's very anal about the right things used in the right time period. So in terms of clothing and set decoration, he's, a lot of directors are, but he is to the nth degree where even if something was invented a year after what the movie was set, not in the movie, blah, blah, blah. Whereas some directors might get a bit lenient with it and say, hey, look, a lot of people aren't going to make the connection that's only a year apart. They know that it's invented in the 1840s. They're not going to know. But Eggers is the opposite. And you can really see that detail come out in his movies. I really love that it's not so much a fake out or a fake out final or anything like I've spoken about on the podcast before. It's really hard to differentiate, like, who would you call the main protagonist? You'd obviously say, the main male protagonist is probably Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp is the main female protagonist. But in terms of the one main one, you could probably make the argument that it's Lily Rose Depp's character because it's kind of based around her. She's one that saves the day. All this is because of something that her character did that set this whole movie in motion. But you have Nicholas Hoult, who also He then takes the step further of signing the contract. Unbeknownst to him, he signs a contract that kind of allows Orlok to then get even closer to stealing his woman and killing a lot of people with the plague. So, yeah, I think it's a real cool discussion. Orlok has always, and Dracula's always been that character where maybe there's a second, third main character. We've seen some other iterations, but the original story is they're kind of Dracula or Orlok is always kind of the third, and it works quite well. And I love the cinematography and the shooting in the castle when Hutter gets there, and they don't fully reveal Orlok's face yet. It's either little side shots or it's long distance shots where you're looking to try and see his face, and it's very dark in there. The only light is really the fireplace and maybe one candle or a candelabra in the middle of the table. The lighting and the shooting was really cool in that scene. One of my favorite scenes. I really loved the fire in the background, and it kind of creates that light and the shadowing with Orlok sitting kind of off center in front of it. That was really cool. And then Hutter's sitting at the opposite side. His voice when you first hear it, when Hutter walks in and he's standing near the fireplace, and the shot, they shoot it really well. They didn't overdo it either. It's kind of the only time they do it where Hutter's kind of getting confused because he's bouncing around, like he's moving really quick. Orlok is kind of here. They shoot straight on with Hutter, and he's kind of he's breathing heavy. He's talking like, he's like a very elderly man, walking behind Hutter. And then about a second later, he's not human-like across the other side of the room. He's gotten there already, and Hutter's kind of already, that's when he's getting confused. That was shot really well because they didn't overdo that. Like, they didn't make Orlok into like an overpowered supervillain that he was kind of just time jumping or phasing different parts of the building. I thought that was them showing you that, yeah, look, he's not just an old dude. Like, you could show this movie to someone that has no idea about anything ever in the world. It's the first movie they're watching. They don't know anything about Dracula. They don't know anything. This is the clue to them that, I know this guy isn't just old and sick. Like, he's definitely supernatural. There's something not right with him, and that's kind of what you want. It's not dumbing it down. It's really showing people that might not know your background, the background of the movie, or any basis around it. So, a 10-second shot really shows you what Eggers was trying to do. I'd really appreciated that cinematography and that direction really well, that scene. That was definitely one of my favourite scenes. And I love the bouncing between Orlok speaking Romanian and speaking English. The accent was just perfect. And reading a lot of what Romanians have said, they said like that's the best on-screen Romanian accent from a non-Romanian actor that they've seen in a very long time or heard in a long time. So that's massive praise to Skarsgård for that. And I thought Nicholas Hoult, weirdly enough, like obviously in a non-sexual way, but the chemistry between Nicholas Hoult and Orlok was really good. Like, when you have these characters on paper and you put them on screen, worked perfectly. I don't think you could have done any better. Then you have, Lily Rose Depp, who did a really good job. This is kind of my biggest, I can't think of the word, but this is the most I've seen of her. My exposure to her is what I'm trying to think of. I've seen a lot of things here and there, but as the main focus, or one of the main focuses, I think she did a really good job. She killed her scene. She had a lot of great chemistry. Nicholas Hoult, very believable couple. Very believable mid-1800s couple as well, I thought. And, Ralph Ineson as the doctor, and he was bouncing off of Willem Dafoe's crazy doctor persona. That was really good. That was the balances between all the characters was really, really good. I thought Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Friedrich was a very tragic character. Like, he was very human. Like, he was very realistic in the sense of, oh yeah, like I'm a rich shipping magnate, and I've got my friend Nicholas Hoult here. Like, he's going to be a big real estate agent. So they're kind of laughing up. They're drinking like rich people. You know that even before it's revealed what his business is, you know he's rich. He's got a nice house. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got kids. His house is very big. He's drinking wine. He's wearing a nice suit. That's, very good character work just from the set decoration, the costuming, and the directing alone, right? The acting and the writing then makes it even better. And he's willing to take Lily Rose Depp in while Nicholas Holt's away. And then as things spiral, he's trying to be the grounded, kind of parental figure, and he really cares for her when she's starting to really delve badly into the night terrors, and obviously when Orlok is getting closer and closer, figuratively and literally, and when he starts to obviously spiral, when he's confused about the plague, and also obviously he's going to ruin his business, and then his family gets killed, which was a tough watch as a dad, but I think that they did it enough. It was very shadowy. It was dark. You didn't see any graphicness. It was like a 4-second shot, and you only saw one of the kids get their blood sucked. The other one already been deceased. It was a tough watch, but I don't think they're embellishing or they were overdoing it for shock value. I think it was a pivotal part of the story that could have been done off screen, but Eggers decided to do it on screen, which I can't judge him for that because he didn't overdo it. So yeah, obviously when the wife and the 2 kids die, he goes crazy. He wants to help, but then he just wants to be with his wife and kids, and it's very sad that he ends up curling up with his wife in the coffin, and he dies from the plague and ends up getting burnt after death, like getting cremated with him. So that was very full on, but it was very tragic and beautiful at the same time. I think that was a very underrated aspect and underrated character development of the film from both of those characters, the wife and the husband being Frederick, was, very, very cool, very tragic. You saw enough of the kids, obviously, and them just being kids in general, you're obviously always going to feel for them. So I thought that aspect was really good. It's probably an aspect that not a lot of people have talked about. I thought it was really, really good. I thought any scene with Orlok in it, the way it was shot always differently, obviously, because he's always only out at night. So it's the shadowing, it's the lighting, it's always the kind of off focus or not focusing on his face as much. It's kind of focusing more on either Nicholas Hoult, because he only really has scenes with Nicholas Hoult or Lily Rose Depp. So the camera's always focusing more on them and their reactions to him than the other way around. I think that's your typical creature feature, right? Less is more. And Eggers knows that. He's the master of less is more. So that was a really cool aspect. I can't stop talking about the cinematography and the lighting and the set decoration. It just really added such a good element to it. Look, the one little nitpicky negative thing I'll say, but it's not if you do with this movie because it happens in almost every iteration, is never understand why. It's never explained to my knowledge well enough why going from Romania to Germany would all have to go on a ship, because Romania is landlocked to my knowledge. So wouldn't he be better off being in a carriage, even in his coffin with soil, and then cover the coffin in soil in the back of a carriage, and just have that taken with one of his minions like Renfield or whoever, taken to Germany from Romania, like inland. I don't know. It creates a good story with, the Demeter and all that, I know, but it's never quite made any sense to me. And I thought maybe Eggers was gonna, because he's a stickler for stuff, I thought maybe, is he gonna change? Is he gonna be one of the first ones to do the carriage idea or another idea? Because the ocean doesn't really make any sense. But that's just a little nitpicky like thing. There was aspects where I didn't maybe get bored. It was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of ready for this current scene to move on. I feel as though some scenes lingered on a bit too much, and that was usually scenes with Orlok and or Lily Rose Depp. I feel as though every scene with Friedrich and his family and Nicholas Hoult as Hutter didn't drag on as much. The longest scene Nicholas Hoult was in was probably any of the castle scenes, which never dragged on to me, but I feel as though some of Lily Rose Depp's did drag on. But Ralph Ineson and Willem Dafoe, their scenes were always good because of their energy, like their opposing energy. Ralph Ineson obviously playing that very grounded, fatherly doctor type role, whereas Willem Dafoe is kind of like the wild card, which is really cool. I thought his character was good. Just the little aspects of like the character development, and when I say that Eggers makes cinematography a pivotal part and almost another character or another member of the cast, he does that with a lot of other aspects as well. If it's the costuming, the set decoration, like I've said, or even just little non-verbal things like to show you that maybe he's a bit crazy and, he's definitely an outsider because he got thrown out of university and all that. Willem Dafoe's character sitting in his chair, he's kind of not with it. He's telling Ralph Ineson to bugger off, essentially, and Ralph Ineson says, okay, we're going now. Then he kind of just walks to him anyway, talks to him in his face for a bit, and then Willem Dafoe kind of wakes up out of like a trance-like stage almost, and they hug. And as Ralph Ineson hugs him and pats him on the back, you see a shitload of dust leave the back of Willem Dafoe's back, right? So that tells you that, one, he's essentially a hermit. He doesn't move from that chair much. He probably doesn't look after himself and have very good hygiene. He's very eccentric. Just awesome bit of character development that is just missing in a lot of movies these days, whereas not so much in horror. If you're going to pinpoint a lot of that time that happens, it's in horror a lot. And animated films as well. Got to give love to animated films. They're very good, obviously, at details and all that. But just awesome character work like that. And even the little aspects of Nicholas Holt's boss that ends up pretty much being the Renfield type character in this situation, that he's the one that sends Holt over, and he's pretty much the full-on scene where he's butt naked, but you don't see anything. He's butt naked, and he's pretty much sitting inside like the symbol, and he's like doing like blood writing / blood ritual. And his first scene we see of him is Nicholas Holt arrives late, and this is another good character development and story development where he's late, he gets there, all the other old bosses are all having a crack at him for being late and wasting his time and wasting their time. He walks and he says, I'm sorry I'm being late, blah, 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 I apologize, so sorry. Whereas the boss is very like laid back and he's fine, it's all good, blah, 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 because he doesn't care, because he knows where and what he's doing, going to get Nicholas Holt to do, because he's all part of the scheme. Like, he's a very pivotal part of getting Hutter over there to be able to sign this document. And he's talking, you notice he's covering things up on the desk when he's showing the map and he's showing things, he's covering up certain parts, and he's talking very funny, and he laughs at certain things, and he's got scabs on him. Just little character things there, which is just awesome. Just muy bueno, is perfect. I love the scene where they go to kill Nosferatu towards the end of the film, but it ends up being the Renfield type character, the boss, can't think of his name, but they stab him, and they end up stabbing him again, and they end up setting everything on fire, which includes the coffin, so Count Orlok can't go back there. And it's only maybe in total 5-6 seconds of Willem Dafoe. He's the last one there. He's burning all the coffins, and it's a quick shot of him like this with the flames around him. Just awesome. Just a cool shot. Like, it's not even a pivotal part of the story, but it's just a really cool shot. And the really cool shots of the German city that they're in. It's something Berg. I've already said it before. Wilsberg, something like that. The shot of the canal that they go down when they're going to pretty much hunt for Orlok. Really cool. With the atmospheric, almost like Burton-like, but more realistic Burton city design and set design and all that, and cinematography. Just awesome work. And I love a good horror that's set in the dark and set in rain. I think it just creates an awesome atmosphere. That's why I loved Heretic, because every outside shot you saw, it was kind of stormy, dark, wet weather. Love it. Nosferatu, obviously a lot of it is in the night time, and half the time it's night time, it's raining, which I think it just really adds atmosphere, and it just, I don't know, it's really cool. That's just like a personal thing. So that's why Eggers always hits home with me, because a lot of his stuff is very dark, gloomy, late afternoon, evening, raining, stormy, etc. So Eggers is always going to hit those points with me. I think he's one of the best directors working right now. And, he's not like a Alex Garland that will kind of ask you the question of, what would your country do in this situation like Civil War, or what would your country do in a situation like Annihilation? Or he's more like, give me a question, or I'm going to come up with a question or a topic, and I'm going to create a whole movie around this, and you're going to ask yourself, what point of view would you be on? Like, what side would you be on? I think, awesome. I recommend his stuff. Like, I really, really do. There's not heaps else I want to talk about other than towards the end, that I must have missed it, but I picked on it afterwards, luckily, that when Lily Rose Depp is pretty much saying, don't come back here until Orlok's dead or whatever, I didn't realise that Willem Dafoe's character was in on it with her, that he was trying, like, he knew that Orlok wasn't going to be there. He knew Orlok was going to be drawn to her no matter what. he wanted to draw Nicholas Hoult away so he couldn't stop Lee Rose Depp's character from sacrificing herself, because it was the only way that Orlok's going to die, is a true maiden's sacrifice. So that scene with them, with Orlok and Lee Rose Depp, was obviously very uncomfortable and weird, but that was obviously the way they were going, which I think it works really well, for sure. Where he's butt naked and they're pretty much making out and insinuates they're having sex without like overdoing it, kind of might just be grinding, and then he sucks her blood. And then the scene where he realizes that the sun is coming up and he looks, I thought it was going to be the typical of that we've seen in a lot of vampire movies and Dracula movies in general. They'll see the sun coming up, they know their time's over, they can't escape it, and they'll, walk into the sun like this, or they'll sit down or sit in a chair and enjoy the sunrise for the first time in their life, and they burst into flames. Orlok doesn't really have a chance to really react properly. He pops up from the bed after being in like a feeding coma, I think, because he fed on her all night, essentially. He looks up, and that's when he starts to disintegrate. Well, not so much disintegrate, it's more body horror, like he starts to vomit up blood, and his whole body's starting to be drained, and obviously he dies, and then she dies, and Nicholas Holt's character gets there, they hold hands as she dies, and it's very, very tragic, but also beautiful as well, that she sacrificed herself for mankind, but also her husband, and that her love for him will always be true, and that's why she could kill Nosferatu, will count Orlok, etc., etc. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to touch on with the points of the film. Let me know in the comments or review, what was your favorite scene? Like, what aspect or character development did you like the most, and what did you think maybe needed work? Like I said, the runtime was maybe a tad long for what they were telling, and wouldn't say I got bored, like I said, but definitely some scenes I wish maybe had gotten concluded a bit earlier. But other than that, or a spider there. So the movie made $166 million from a $50 million budget. That excludes marketing, obviously, but the marketing wasn't too over the top for this. They were relying on name value and Eggers' name value as well. And it's currently in theaters, so it probably still hit that 170, maybe even 180 mark, because it's been out for just over a month now. So I wouldn't be surprised if it runs, for a fifth, sixth, maybe a seventh week. Adds a few more millions to its total. I think that's really, really good. Like, a movie like this can come out over Christmas and still make really, really good money, considering the type of movie it is. That's always really cool. And obviously it'll make a lot of money from the home digital release, and maybe the physical market isn't what it used to be. It'll still make a bit of money. There are still people that will buy the Blu-ray, definitely, of this. And yeah, pretty much all I'll say about that. And we'll maybe get into a bit of trivia that I maybe already touched on, but we'll repeat some. The exteriors of Orlok's castle were filmed at Hunadora Castle, also known as Corvin Castle, a Romanian castle located in Transylvania, and one of the largest medieval castles extant in Europe. What's more, it's a castle where Vlad Dracula was briefly imprisoned. Right, so I was correct about that. Bill Skarsgård trained with an opera coach to lower his voice an octave to make the voice of Count Orlok as deep as possible, which worked really, really well. It was awesome. The castle scenes were filmed in the Pernstein Castle in the Czech Republic, the same location that was used for Werner Herzog's Nosferatu. That's really cool. Willem Dafoe did a scene with 2,000 live rats, which would have been the scene where he's setting everything on fire. That's really cool. In an interview with Variety, director Robert Eggers explained that the design for Orlok deliberately went back to folklore and to the culture of Orlok's home region. So to try and make a more scary vampire than we've had in quite some time, I went back to the folklore. It's something that I like anyway, but the early folk vampire was written about by people who believed that vampires existed. There was going to be some good stuff there, and the vampires of folklore is a putrid, walking, undead corpse. And so the question became, what does a dead Transylvanian nobleman look like? That means his complex Hungarian costume with very long sleeves, strange high-heeled shoes, and a furry hat. It also means a moustache. Excuse me. No matter what, there's no way this guy can't have a moustache. Try to find a Transylvanian person who's of age who can grow a moustache that doesn't have a moustache. It's part of the culture. If you don't want to bother Googling, think of Vlad the Impaler. Even Bram Stoker had the sense to give Dracula a moustache in the book. So we'll end the trivia there. Yeah, so it's very interesting, and that's what I was saying about the moustache and the costume. I think it really fit well with as realistic as it can be. If there was a realistic Orlok, I think they nailed the look really, really well. But yeah, look, I'll give this film a star rating out of 5. I'll give it a 4.75 out of 5. I don't think it's a perfect film or a 5 out of 5, but it is a very, very good movie. Not only one of the best horror movies of 2024, but one of the best films in general. Definitely in terms of like the technical aspects, like the costuming and set decoration, and the cinematography was all top notch. The acting, the directing was just awesome. And if you listen to this podcast with the spoilers, because you're one of those people that doesn't care about spoilers and you want to watch the movie, I hope that you watch it if you're listening this long and you watch it and you still enjoy it, because I had a really good time with it. And the next episode will probably release less than a week, because I usually do these towards the end of the week, but I'm recording and releasing at the start of the week to kind of get ahead a bit. So please be sure to follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to me to any podcast you listen to, if it's on the host feed on Buzzsprout, or if it's on Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much almost everywhere now. So be sure to follow/subscribe. And I do YouTube exclusive videos where I do like tier lists and defending shitty movies and things like that. So be sure to subscribe to me over on YouTube. And make sure you like the podcast lead review or like the video over on YouTube. You'll all be very much appreciated. If there's new release movies coming out this year, please comment or send me a message, the movie you want me to review, maybe a bit ahead of time so I can plan. And I'll be sure to try and review it for you. And I'll tag you and say that it was a recommendation or a request from you. And yeah, start a conversation from there. And yeah, we'll end the podcast here. This has been Goose for Goose Talks Film. And be sure to go see those movies at the cinema, guys.